Welcome back to the training series for the Rehabilitation Cost Estimation Tool for Mining and Exploration in New South Wales. This is Module 11. In this module, we will dive into the Overburden Emplacement Area input sheet, which calculates cost for decommissioning and rehabilitation of waste rock dumps and stockpiles. The sheet includes a default table and a user build table and is similar to the Tailing Storage Facilities sheet. The default table is simple to use and requires only the selection of a risk level and entry of a footprint area. The risk level selection references default capping thicknesses, growth media thickness, and engineering costs from the assumptions capping sheet. Furthermore, guidance on the risk level to be applied to your overburden emplacement area is provided in the Assumptions Inclusions column in the Cost Schedule sheet. Should you require further clarification, it is recommended that you reach out to the regulator directly to discuss the expectation of what rate is to be applied to the specific overburden emplacement area on your mine. We will enter 6 structures to show the different risk levels and types. We name each structure, enter a GIS reference if available, and the footprint area. The GIS reference can be the object ID of the polygon associated with the overburden emplacement area uploaded as part of the annual rehabilitation report submission into the regulator's mine rehabilitation portal. Our 6 overburden emplacement areas are WRD1 with a high risk level and is 50 hectares, WRD2 with a medium risk level and 70 hectares, WRD3 with a low risk level and 80 hectares, WRD4 with a very low risk level and 200 hectares. We also have 10 overburden stockpiles with a total footprint of 20 hectares, so we will add 10 times 2 to show the workings and add a note. Then we will add 5 growth media stockpiles with a total footprint of 10, so we will enter 5 by 2 to show the workings and add a note. In most cases, when using the defaults for this sheet, this is all that needs to be done. The user build table for this sheet is similar to the Tailing Storage Facilities user build table and gives us more flexibility on the inputs and allows site-specific area entries, site-specific capping and growth media thickness, and a wider range of fleet selections. If the user build table is not showing, go to the left and select Show in the drop-down box. This table is more complex and requires us to enter all the appropriate quantities to allow a proper cost to be calculated. We must enter quantities, even if they are 0 with a justification, to the following tables. Reshape growth media piles. This applies only to growth media stockpiles. Overburden bulk push. This applies only to overburden emplacement areas. Ramps. Remove rock cover, load, haul, place. Construct working layer, capillary break, and low permeability layers. Place top rock cover. Source and apply additional capping, often not applicable. Construct drains and water management. Source and apply growth media and ameliorants. Revegetation. Permeability testing and engineering. Maintenance of rehabilitated areas and repairs. And contaminated soil treatment. The first selection is similar to the default table with name entry, any notes we wish to add, risk level selection, and GIS reference. The risk level selection populates the default capping thickness and other items, but we can override these defaults further down the table. We will do an example of a high-risk overburden emplacement area. The first difference to the default table is the requirement to enter 2 area quantities. We must enter a footprint area, so we will add 120 hectares, and 10 hectares for the ramps. We now proceed down the sections and override default selections as appropriate. Remember, we must add justification when we override the default. We skip past the Reshape Growth Media Piles section as this only applies to these piles. We will add our volume to bulk push as 50,000 cubic meters and select a D10 dozer pushing 500 meters. We will leave the ramp section as suggested by the tool, changing only the dozer selection from D6 in all cases to D10. We accept the area suggested by the tool of 120 hectares for the working layer and change the fleet for rock, load and haul to a medium fleet, hauling rock from 2,200 meters away. We will change the dozer to a D10 pushing 500 meters. Similarly, for the capillary break layer, we accept the suggested 120 hectares and select a medium fleet hauling material from 2,200 metres away. For the low permeability layer area, we will leave the area as suggested by the tool, but studies have shown this layer must be thicker as the clay on site has higher permeability. We will enter 1 metre as the thickness to override the default and a note for the regulator. Our clay is coming from a borrow pit, so we make sure this is selected and leave the remaining values as shown. We accept the area and the default thickness suggested by the tool for the top rock layer. We will then change only the fleet selections to load and haul rock from 2,500 to 3,000 metres one-way distance and the dozer to a D10. Additional capping is not often required, however we will enter quantities here to demonstrate the calculation. Our investigations indicate a small area of the structure, around 20 hectares, requires additional capping, and this will be geofabric and geosynthetic and a geomembrane. However, we have a quote for the geomembrane of $950,000 per hectare, so we enter that as an alternate rate and write a note to the regulator. The default assumption for drainage is 10% of the footprint area. In our example, we can demonstrate the area does not receive rain often and drainage can be minimal, so we will override the 10% with 5%. We will leave the drains at 4 metres width. For the growth media, the tool calculates the sum of the footprint area plus the drains, so we will accept the area suggested by the tool. For our example, all growth media is on-site, so we will make the volume from local on-site supply equal to the calculated volume, which sets the off-site volume to 0. Also in our example, studies have shown we need to amend the growth media with gypsum to create a soil structure conducive for vegetation growth. We will add the same area as for the growth media area and select gypsum. We do not have any quoted rates for the supply of gypsum, so we accept the defaults. We will accept the calculated area in the revegetation table, and we will apply a native seed for hydroseeding. We will leave the permeability testing as suggested by the tool. To demonstrate how several land treatments may be applied, we will assume all these are required and enter 10 hectares along the columns. That is, 10 hectares for pest management, land management of undisturbed areas, existing rehabilitation repair minor, moderate, major, and total failure of landform, and maintenance of areas that are shaped and seeded and revegetation has been successful. We will review the warning message for this sheet. As we have entered quantities to the default and user build tables in the same column, this warning message is shown. This is acceptable and won't cause any errors. The warning is just to make sure that we did not intend to enter quantities for the same overburden emplacement area in the default and user build tables. A similar message occurs in the tailing storage facility and water management area sheet. As for all the sheets, the subtotals for each table are shown in the black lines at the end of each section, and then the total for each column is shown at the top of the sheet. For this sheet, the tool also shows the per hectare rate for the default and user build tables. The total for the sheet is shown on the left-hand side, and then above that is the total for the entire RCE, so we can see in real time how quantities entered to the local sheet affect the total RCE. Let's jump over to the RCE summary to see how the total is building up. We now have rolled up costs for infrastructure area, infrastructure mine entries, beneficiation facilities, tailing storage facilities, water management areas, and now overburden emplacement areas.